So I have a genre of books and movies and such that I don't know if like is the right word, but it's almost kind of my kryptonite. The stories where you get to be with a character as they are rejected. And that sounds awful. But they're trying their best and they get rejected. And then you get to be with them as they slowly, almost painfully figure out that they have worth and, that journey that you go on. And that those stories just like get me right in the heart. Welcome to the club. This is Cracking the Spine, a podcast where we're going to treat it like a book club, but a book club that actually talks about books. Because we've all been there, we've been excited about a book club, and you get there and they just want to drink wine and chit chat, and nobody's actually read the book. My idea for this is that I'm reading a book for the first time, no prior knowledge, share first reactions, and also have listeners share their reactions and comments and in other ways. Alright, so today's episode is about the book The Other Bennet Sister, which I did not know was a book. I was scrolling through YouTube, as I do, but I wish I didn't do, and there was a teaser for the Other Bennet Sister miniseries. And it was like, oh my gosh, Mary Bennet finally gets a story. I'm so excited. And I immediately went and showed my husband because we like to watch period dramas together. Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion is one of my favorites. Not the Netflix version. That one made me a little upset. Had to shift my mindset for that one. Anyways, so we watched those kind of shows together. And so he was really excited as well, but it hadn't come out yet. It wasn't coming out for like another 2 weeks or so. And I saw that a YouTuber that I had watched previously put out a video about it. And she's one of those people that like really knows the books really well and like kind of talks more on the book side of those stories. And so I clicked on it because I was like, oh, I'm just so excited. I want to see. I'm ready to see it, but I can't see it, so I'm going to watch this instead. And then she dropped that it's actually a book. And it's a book that her viewers had asked her to read a bunch, and she wasn't super into, or she'd been really disappointed by, I don't want to say knockoffs, but like modern authors writing about Jane Austen characters. Like, where are they now kind of things, or like pseudo sequels. And so she wasn't gonna read it because they just didn't match Jane Austen for her in general. But with the show coming out and having received so many recommendations to read it, she finally read it and she said it was really good. And so I didn't even finish the video. I immediately hopped over to Spotify and was like, is this audiobook on here? Because I want to read it. I must hear this story, and the show isn't out, so I'm going to read it. So it is on Spotify. So I immediately started reading it. So I went into the book, no spoilers. But then the show came out, and my husband really wanted to watch it, so I have seen some of the show. But I'm about halfway through the book, so I'm going to try to focus on the book and not really talk about the show. Maybe once I finish the book and I finish these episodes, I'll do a little mini the show versus the book episode. But for now, that's how I got into the book. Okay. Before we get into how I felt about it or how I'm feeling about it so far, I first want to give a spoiler warning. Some reviews I talk more about the plot, and some reviews I just kind of talk about how I felt. So just a general spoiler warning, I may or may not ruin some things. So if you haven't read the book, go read it. Alright, so with that said, let's get into the reaction. So I have a genre of books and movies and such that I don't know if like is the right word, but it's almost kind of my kryptonite. The stories where you get to be with a character as they are rejected. And that sounds awful. But they're trying their best and they get rejected. And then you get to be with them as they slowly, almost painfully figure out that they have worth and, that journey that you go on. And that those stories just like get me right in the heart and I feel them really strongly. And this seems to be one of those stories where, growing up, Mary was a normal child and was playing with Lizzie and Jane, and they were all best friends. And then she gets pretty much rejected by her mother, and not once, but like has a moment of realizing then that's how her mom feels about her, that she's this ugly, sad little thing that is never going to bring the family honor. It felt very Mulan, but is never going to bring the family security money, isn't going to be an asset for the family. And she's Mrs. Bennet. So she talks very loudly about this and Mary hears it. And then she just kind of changes trajectory slowly but surely. And she stops playing with her older sisters because she hears her mom talk about them very differently than how she talks about Mary. And so Mary internalizes that and says, they are different from me. I don't deserve to be with them. And just kind of goes inward. And then that's compounded by her younger siblings that come, Kitty and Lydia, because of course Mrs. Bennet loves Lydia because Lydia is a little mini Mrs. Bennet, which isn't good. Anyways, so she goes into herself and she gets really into, I don't know, it's an interesting balance of this character because things like reading and being really knowledgeable and playing music very well, she gets into those things because she really enjoys music and she really enjoys knowing things, but they get this warped effect to them that she enjoys music and then suddenly she's trying to play music perfectly because she has to do it perfectly and it's very technical and there's like no feeling in it because she has to prove herself that, oh, this is a thing that can make me worth something and so I have to try to do it perfectly. And that the same thing happens with books, is that she's trying to get her father's attention and love, which he's checked out decades ago because of his realization that in his mind, women are stupid because of his wife. And so Mary tries to be knowledgeable and well read and it's twisted so that she's trying to get the attention and love of her father. And it's very interesting because she's not just doing it because she feels worthless, but it's like ruining the things that she loves or twisting them in a way that she can't see. And it's so sad. And it's just a slow, and that's like the first third of the book. It's just slow rejection going into all. And the reason I really like those stories, I think, is because I really identify with them. It's very therapeutic to watch it from the outside and being like, you can do it, Mary. This is really sad and I really feel for you, but I know that you're gonna get somewhere. I don't know where it is yet, but I like those kind of stories. This one is particularly heart-wrenching because there's some where it's like, my best friend, I found out I'm in love with him, but he's in love with this other girl. And it's like, I don't really identify with that. I never really had that. But it's still that same feeling process. I like it, but I don't identify with it. This one, I identify with. I'm the middle child. I had the unruly hair growing up. I wore glasses. And I feel like I identify with Mary so much. For a long time, I felt really depressed and small because of things like that. But as I became an adult, they became good things, which I'm hoping is what happens with Mary. It was almost too difficult to read at the beginning. Not because it was bad, but because it was too accurate to how I felt. I have beautiful older sisters, and I feel like they're in a separate social group from me, etc., etc. If this ends poorly for Mary, I will be devastated. What the book does well is like I said, it really sets up why Mary is the way she is. The awkwardness, the desperate need to be recognized for these things. And people do recognize her. Like when she's introduced to Mr. Bingley, when the first time they meet Mr. Bingley, they say, "This is the most accomplished woman in the neighborhood. It's Mary." And nobody cares. I mean, I feel like Caroline Bingley cares, but she like twists it to be, "Oh, you must be so accomplished because you don't give a crap about how you look because you look like crap." But she says it all witty and disguised. It's like that. Okay. And then the book has a lot of downtime. The structure of the book so far has been, Mary's childhood, and then you get into the pieces of Pride and Prejudice where Mary was present, like meeting Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy and Mr. Collins coming, and I almost called her Caroline. Charlotte marrying Mr. Collins, and then Mary's not part of the second half of Pride and Prejudice. So it just kind of cuts off, and Mary's sisters all get married, and then she's home alone with her emotionally abusive parents through negligence and the one that won't shut up about how awful she is. And then phase two kind of starts when Mr. Bennet dies and they're kicked out of their house and the Collinses move in. But in the book, there's so much downtime. When I read Neverending Story, the only reason I got through that book, and I don't even think I got through the whole thing, I got through where the movie got through. Because I had seen the movie, I could follow the pacing in it. It was such an Alice in Wonderland type book, but the only reason I got through was because I had seen the movie. And once the story that the movie had covered ended, I stopped reading the book because I couldn't follow the pacing I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. So that's kind of what happened in this book, was that I was really into the beginning because I had read Pride and Prejudice, and so I knew the structure and the pacing and the characters, and I was following along. And then when Mr. Bennet dies, then it was kind of difficult for me to continue forward because that was the point where I realized that the book was slow. And not in a bad way slow, but in a Jane Austen style way slow. It's calm and contemplative, which is what everyone loves about that era anyways. So Mary and her mom go and live with Jane, and then they live with Lizzie, and then Mary is uncomfortable living at Lizzie's house, so she decides to go live with the Collinses, which just feels like, did they have, I don't know, maybe this is my modern brain, but I thought Lizzie and Charlotte were friends. And that's why Lizzie goes and stays with them when they live at Rosings, or next to Rosings. And it just kind of felt weird that she was like, "I'm gonna go stay with these people in my old house." Anyways, and it was just really slow and like nothing was happening, like in the sense of drama. But once I like settled into that slowness, then it had its own kind of beauty that I could I almost settled into the character of Mary instead of just seeing, "Oh, that's me. That's me, that's me, that's me. That's how I feel, that's how I feel." When I got into this middle part, it was like, "Okay, this is Mary." It still had pieces of me. There's still moments where it's like, "Oh, I totally think the way that Mary thinks." And I think that just like Pride and Prejudice, the book, that slowness is not reflected in any of the movies. I think that the show will also struggle to portray that. And that's okay. I'm sure it'll go a different direction and it'll be fine. But especially if you have never read a Jane Austen before, expect it to go slow and just treat it like poetry, where you're supposed to fill the spaces with thoughts and feelings and interpretations. So in the middle, there's been a couple weird moments just to talk about the writing. You're in Mary's head, and she's really smart, and she's really observant, and she can tell you what she observes about people. And then you get to this weird part with Mrs. Gardner, and she gives this a little too observant. It was like deep into the character of Mrs. Gardner and why she does what she does and how she's kind and what her mannerisms are and what her motivations are. And in the book, I know Mrs. Gardner is Mary's aunt. Of course, she knows her better than the average person. But in the book, Mrs. Gardner is almost missing from the entire book up until that point. And then Mary just does this like soliloquy about her. And it was like, how do you know all this about this person? I mean, book wise, you shouldn't know all this about this person. Like, yes, you're very observant and you would have noticed some of these things, but this is a very deep analysis of this character from this other character that shouldn't know it, but like maybe knows it because there's like a family history there that isn't shown in the book. It was a little weird. So early in the story, when Mr. Collins comes and gets rejected by Lizzie, and not even at that point, before that point, Charlotte's talking to Mary and she's like, it would make sense for someone to marry him and it would bring stability to your family. And then Mary's like, well, I could do that. This is a way I could get my mother's attention and love and feel like I'm worth something. And she's like the only one, like, because she's so logical, she's the only one that treats Mr. Collins with any kind of respect and doesn't immediately judge him based on his letter or the things he's saying. You're almost like rooting for Mary, but if you've read the book or seen the movie, you know that that doesn't happen. But it's like, oh, this would be so good, and it would, quote unquote, fix all her problems. And Charlotte pushes her to do this, and Mary puts herself out there and pushes herself out of her comfort zone to try to make this happen and to try to do this thing that is good. And then in this book, Charlotte, I think I heard someone describe it as Charlotte enters her villain era. She swoops in and just takes Mr. Collins because everything she told Mary was true and it was a good idea, and so she was going to do it. So then it was weird that Mary eventually goes and lives with the Collinses. And then she stumbles into this weirdly sweet relationship with Mr. Collins because their marriage is falling apart because Charlotte hates him, just like everyone else did when he first came. And tolerates him, but treats him poorly. Tries to stay away from him as much as possible. And he's just miserable. He just wanted a happy family and did his best in the ways that he thought. Anyways, Mary gets into this cute relationship where they are in the library every day and they're just talking about things, scholarly things, not like their intimate feelings. And he's impressed with her and he enjoys talking to her. And then he starts teaching her Greek so that they can read Aristotle because they're both trying to figure out what happiness is. And then Charlotte gets all butthurt that her husband is spending happy time with some other woman. And Mary doesn't even think about this. She's just like, I'm so happy that, someone's enjoying my company and enjoying talking to me about these things that I care about. And then Charlotte start acting all jealous, and Mary, who is very aware of, if her actions are hurting other people, it really hurts her. And so she cuts off this interaction and relationship with Mr. Collins because Charlotte perceives it as, what's the word? Inappropriate. And then Mr. Collins shares that the reason he is so awkward and says these weird things is because he's overcompensatingly trying, because his father treated him like her father treated her, well, her mother. Her parents treated her and just kind of told him he wasn't good enough to do anything. And so he was trying really hard, and that's why he would prepare his special compliments for the ladies ahead of time, because he felt like that meant that he would perform better, essentially, that he would interact better. But it had the opposite effect, and it made everyone think he was a weirdie. Anyways, they have this cute relationship, and then they come out of this relationship, and I think they're both hurt that they've lost the relationship. They grieve it, but then I think the Collinses try harder at their marriage, which is good, and they do good. And then, but I think Mary doesn't have a redirection place. Then Lady Catherine de Bourgh shows up, and she's like, I know your sister, and I don't like her because she's sassy. And then Charlotte's like, oh, well, Lady Catherine, you take poor young women and train them up to be governesses. in wonderful households. Mary should do that. And Mary's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a governess. No, thank you. But then Lady Catherine is like, I will condescend to, even though you're related to this lady I don't like, I will make you a governess and I'll make you the best governess and you will love me forever, kind of thing. And then this is the part that didn't make sense. Mary does not want to be a governess. So much so that Charlotte's like, well, you best get out of my house before Lady Catherine takes over your life, and you better do it quickly so you get out of my house and away from my husband. So Mary, that's when she reaches out to the gardeners and she's like, can I come stay with you? And, say, pretty much, tell me you need me at your house so I could tell Lady Catherine that all social obligations make it so I cannot receive your wonderful gift of being governess. And like, she wants it to run away from it so badly that she goes to the gardeners. And then I must have gotten distracted or something because it felt like a page later, she was a governess for the gardener's children. And you didn't want to be a governess so badly that you ran away to be a governess. And that just didn't make any sense. And maybe I missed something because, reading and having a life, sometimes you miss something. Or maybe it was, I don't want to be around Lady Catherine. And that was the motivation for running away. And I'd rather be a governess with my aunt and uncle, who are good, nice people, than be a governess with this crazy lady that's going to steal my life. Which, like, almost doesn't quite fit Mary's character at that point, because that's what her mother was. Her mother was this crazy lady that took over her life, and so she is an abuse victim. Her character isn't one that runs away from that yet. Like, there's been no confrontation with her mother about, you are hurting me and I need to step away. I'm not connecting the motivation, and that was a little weird for me. She ran from being a governess to being a governess. But like, her being a governess with the gardeners is like very at the back of the story. Like, they barely talk about it. And that's why I was like, is she a governess? I wasn't quite sure. Because that's about where I am. We're at the gardeners, things are happening, and we've met Tom Hayward, and they're having a relationship kind of like the Collins one, except more. It's slightly different because I feel like Mary and Mr. Collins were sad, strange little people that came together and talked. And now it feels like Mary, with Mrs. Gardner's encouragement, is kind of coming into her own. They convinced her that she can dress nicely and it's not just vanity, it's taking care of yourself and recognizing that you deserve to look nice because you are a worthy creature. So she's kind of coming into her own, and she's away from her mom, so no one's telling her she's ugly or stupid. And the Gardners are all down to earth, kind people, good people, outgoing people, and they make her feel like she has worth, and she's slowly accepting that. And then Tom comes in, and he doesn't have that issue. I mean, he's the second son, so I'm sure there's some of it. But he's a successful lawyer, and he loves London. And so they come in together, and he doesn't save her so far. They like to this thing where she's like, you should read histories and fun scholarly stuff. And he's like, well, you better read poetry because it's not all about, facts and stuff like that. I'm a lawyer, so I know that it's the letter of the law, but you should read poetry to balance it out because I love poetry. And they come together, and she gets that relationship she had with Mr. Collins of, let's talk about this logical, factual stuff and get really excited about it. But then he's like, okay, now you got to read poetry. And so now she is broadening herself. He's like pulling her out more, but she's choosing to do it. And he's not just, I'm gonna come in and save you. And we have this whole other unhealthy relationship of, now you tell me that I'm worthy, and so I'm gonna hang out around you, even though I don't think I'm worthy. But he is helping her to realize that she is of worth. And that's where I am. That's it. And like, Tom's a little weird, and it might just be the because it's an audiobook that I'm listening to. Anyways, so I like them. They're about to go off to the lakes. Yeah, that's right. Oh, and can I just say, umbrage is a real word. I have never heard that word outside of Harry Potter. And so when they said, and she took it with umbrage, and I was like, what? That's a word? I was a little destabilized for a second. And then I was like, you authors, you're just using words that nobody uses anymore and put them as people's names. And it says right there who this character is in their name in a word that nobody knows is a word. Anyways, I felt a little sheepish there. I felt like I've been tricked. Not really. Alright, I had to stop listening to the book so I could sit down and record the podcast. So I didn't want to just blaze through it. So part 2 will come once I've finished the book entirely. Please read along. Please leave comments. You know, I want to hear what other people feel about the book because I feel like there's a lot of talk around the show, which so far the show is really good, but different. But there's not a lot of talk about the book. So if you've read the book, tell me about it. Oh, but don't spoil anything. Although I'll probably get spoiled because it's everywhere. So that's all from me for now. Back to my books. I'll be reading.